All right, guys. A bit of a strange battleship setup. It looked a little bit terrible, but seeing what they were up against, there was a little bit of they might actually make it thought in here, though.
I don't know what they were thinking. I'm really not sure what that battleship setup was supposed to counter. Maybe they were just trying to throw the match without any of us knowing it. I'm not really sure. I think we were talking on our Eve Radio interview, was that yesterday or the day before, about what setups people might bring. And there's been so much form crying about the ECM team. Maybe they were trying to use drones or something and beat the ECM team. But what I said was going to happen, and Shadu told me it wasn't, that we were going to see a lot of the same Minmatar rush setups and also kite team setups. And I don't think that the battleship team we brought would have done well against either. It certainly didn't do well against the Minmatar rush team right there.
Well, certainly not against the rush team. Rush teams are quite good, but I think I said that ECM would not play a dominant part of the second weekend because people have learned how to counter it. And that's possibly what Bain were thinking. Then again, this match mattered nothing at all, really. So it was a matter of bringing something that, didn't really let anyone know what you might have at the back pocket. They were maybe thinking something, interesting, like local reps with those energy transfers going on there, but it didn't work very well.
Bain certainly sent a strong message of you have no clue what we'll do because the setup will never bring anywhere again. But I mean, that's done is done, and it wasn't really a significant match for any side. So nothing gained, nothing lost. We do have another contest for this 1840 match coming up. It is Lack of Imaginations versus Noisy Kunda. It's another prediction tournament. It is a ship model courtesy of Shattered Crystal. We have one of them here on the table, and you can go to eveonline.com and try to predict the match and win one of these beautiful models because they are really, really pretty. Anywho, we have about 10 minutes. 10 minutes till Lack of Imagination versus Noli Secunda. Let's talk 0.0. It is one of the most interesting parts of space. Maybe even start out with some politics. We talked to Ravi about, oh God, now the Russians are going to run all of space. Is that the situation? Are we going to have a Serenity type situation where one alliance runs everything?
I certainly don't think so. The Russians have never worked together for long periods of time, not since the old days of the original Red Alliance. They've been fractured and fighting each other for years now, and it was only really the NC that I believe in the winter and fall has been messing with the Russians. That NC external threat is what brought them all together. With that threat gone, I don't think that they're going to be staying together. There's no other threats for them to fight anyways, other than maybe Goonswarm Federation, which is on the opposite side of the map.
There's absolutely nothing that confuses me more than Michael Bolton scouting and then the Russian politics. Bolton, I can kind of, understand that he's never discovered the scanner button, but
that was quite a treat for the rest of us to get some real live Shadu raging. And all we had to do was look over and see Michael Bolton's Drake scouting, and I believe he was such a quick reflex scout that he was letting such ships as Iderons get away from him.
Iderons that my Macario even managed to lock before him.
Hey. Yeah, and also it's I don't think it's long-term stable to have that kind of arrangement with any alliance. It doesn't matter who it is. You can't have, if you have one alliance which claims a significant chunk, of nullsec, then it's just the people they've pushed out back to Empire are going to get bored and reform, and big alliance is going to get old and fat and slow, and it's just 6 to 8 months max, and the whole thing falls apart. I don't think it'll work.
It's just history. That's how things are. There's always someone who's on top. ASCN were big, Bob were big, Goonswarm and their friends were big, NC were big. There's always one big block that eventually will just get kicked off.
And you look what's happened to NC, and everyone was they're owning half the map and all this stuff, and now you get old and fat, you fall apart.
And there's nobody threatening them right now to hold them together. Like I said, the only other really big block is Goonswarm Federation, those little nerds over there, and the northwest corner, but they're not threatening the Russians at all. So I think they're going to fall apart soon. But that brings us to why 0-0 is so interesting. Politics. I love politics. That's why I hang out in 0-0.
Yeah. And also you just got to factor that all those, when you get a whole bunch of people kicked out of nullsec and they head back to Empire, they don't stay there long.
Yeah.
All those displaced people, Russians displacing everybody else, the people who are displaced, they may not be holding space now, but in 6 to 8 months again, 6 to 12 months, max. It's just
People like
they're gonna come
McLeod,
back.
Morses, Meehy, and Razor, they're not going to be content sitting in Matsu running missions. I mean, let's
Exactly.
face it, they'll need to come out at some point.
Right, and Morses Mehi has already come out. They're in Delve
Yeah, that's
fighting
true, that's
everyone
true, of
else,
course, yeah.
including Test and whoever else. It's a nice little fight club. They're getting lean, mean, and fighting machine once again. And once they come out of that nice little hole that they've dug for themselves, it's going to be all guns blazing probably after some of their old friends. Who knows?
That was a really interesting place to be right now. The whole place has just become one gigantic cluster of like random little guys on the map all fighting each other. Some living at NPC stations, some having their own little sov on the map. So it's a cool place to hang.
Is it sometimes good for alliances to get kicked out of their space?
Absolutely.
I mean, you said lean, mean, fighting machine.
You look at me like I have experience. Oh wait, yes I do.
You're looking at me like I have experience. Would never happen.
No, but I mean, so when you look at these big alliances, they sit there, they mine moons for years and years and years, and they don't really do anything. They'll send their troops off sometimes to fight somewhere, but nothing really happens. Like, it's like when we've done some of the adjustments to 0.0 leading up to here, and a lot of the space holding alliances were kind of like, oh no, we're sitting here, we're making money, let's not change anything. And all the people knocking on the door trying to shoot them are like, oh, let's have a few changes. Is it like healthy to get out of that like big static, I'm just sitting in my space hanging out kind of thing once in a while?
Sure, because when the wars keep EVE interesting for everyone, they're paying more attention, they're doing more stuff in space. And if you're sitting there fat and happy on your space throne, just sucking up all the moon goo you can, people are going to stop paying as much attention to what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And you get to a certain point where something's going to happen to ruin you. You could get invaded by a bunch of people, lose your space. You could have someone forget to pay the soft bills because they're not interested in paying attention to that kind of stuff anymore. One way or another, I think just sitting around doing nothing is going to end poorly for you.
I think the thing that kills PvP alliances the most, or not the most, but like one of the most fatal things is when you get more attached to your space than your identity. You see it with people, especially places like Declan, because it's so fat. People go like, oh, and they move and say, oh, we can leave any time, and then they settle down and they see the moons and they see the belts and they go, oh, we'd like to stay here. And as soon as you get into a fight and you think you're thinking more about your space than you are about your members, that's when you start being a PvP alliance and start being like a big fat cow waiting to be popped. That's just the way it works.
And a big
Declan's
fat
prime
cow
example.
is juicy target for people
Exactly,
who
exactly.
want to do such popping.
But I mean, shaking up 0.0 is interesting. Hopefully we'll shake up 0.0 a little bit this winter. Well, I mean, so we're going to be working on it with Team BFF.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on it right now? Not all of them. Not all of them.
That could take a while.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question that I asked him last week?
Sure, hit me.
Him being the lead game designer of flying him in space, you now being on the team that's working on flying in space. What is your vision for 0-0? What do you want to see it as?
That's not a huge question. Yeah, I mean, what we've been working on the last month or two is trying to get that vision pinned down. Like we've always kind of had an idea of where we were going in a direction, but it's always kind of been a little bit kind of put together on the fly kind of thing. And we've been spending a lot of time thinking about what we want nullsec to be and all the different bits and how everything fits together and trying to map out like the general rules and the specific things, like this is how we want Sov to be and this is how we want like industry and nullsec to be and all this kind of stuff. So we've been talking with the Alliance Tournament guys about it, we've been talking with the CSM about it, we've talked to a lot of people internally in CCP. We've got a pretty good idea now of like this is the big picture of where we want to get to. And then it's just a question of picking out where we want to start and getting going.
So what are some of the big problems that you're seeing right now with it?
Oh God, all kinds of stuff. So
Resources are a little bit.
yeah, we got issues with resource distribution. We got issues with the technetium, which is like a long-standing issue. So this on the forum, we knew that was going to be an issue because of the way the Tech 2 production tree is structured. It was just like to remove the technetium bottleneck, you need to start messing around with blueprints and reactions and stuff. And no, the blueprints are okay, but it was the reactions I think we didn't want to touch because it's Starbase is in progress and it's a deployment nightmare. We're going to have to touch that. We're going to have to bite the bullet and make one way or another, make this problem go away and flatten the market somewhat for that. We need to look at soft mechanics a lot. We need to look at stuff that isn't soft mechanics as well. It's very tempting to focus in on Sov and the big alliance holders and the big territory holders and say like, well, we need to make this big complex system, but there's actually a lot of the stuff around the outside that's not in the Sov system that really affects how nullsec works, and we need to we're trying to take a more holistic view and understand how the whole thing works and how we always talk about like small gangs you have objectives, but we end up making big fleet objectives because we're thinking about SOV, and we need to kind of break out of that and start thinking about how we can achieve this more kind of the smaller gangs and the people living around the edges and all the kind of the stuff that doesn't quite get captured by the system currently.
It would be nice to do something for some of the in-space money-making activities. Look at the mini professions, look at mining, look at all the resource distributions.
Yeah.
I mean,
Mining industry, I think actually two of the things that really need, not necessarily big changes, but they need significant changes, if you see what I mean. They don't have to be like massive seismic shifts, but we need to figure out what the thing is in the bottom that needs just, and doing that and tweaking it.
TRIT data cores.
Yeah. Shipping volumes, what you're supposed to be building in nullsec, how it's supposed to work, how it stacks up against Empire. Self-sufficiency. We want to keep some ties with Empire, is one of the things we've been talking about. We don't want to like break that link and have two different worlds, but the volume of TRIT that you're moving backwards and forwards currently is kind of silly. That's like, I think that's just too big a burden. We want to have a connection, but the volume of the TRIT is a big problem we want to look at.
What if we just made 0.0 the sole place you could get ice? I'm throwing that out there like it's new, but it's actually something Grayscale's been talking about with the other guys.
I think it touches so
People are
many
gonna kill me
things, so many things that would make 0.0 a funner place and better place, more important place to be. It not only touches like your Care Bear aspect, it gets people out there like living in the 0-0 space, living
Sasha,
in it.
can I interrupt you? I'll let you finish that one, but we need to go to the match. I'm really sorry, guys. It is lack of imagination versus Nolly Secunda. After that match, you will hear what Sastro has to think about, has to say about ice. Sastro, what do you think? Who's going to win this one?
Lack of imagination has done about as bad as you can do in this tournament so far, so I'm gonna have to go with Nolly Secunda.
Does this mean I can go out now and buy as much ice as I can off the market?
Possibly.
And when you do that, and then don't put the
Yeah.
change in, then well, you have a lot of ice.
Nolly Secunda.
Yeah, no, I'm going to have to go with them on that. But yeah.
I'm going to go with Nolly Secunda as well. We'll be right back.